Doing a ball joint on a 2009 Dodge Journey. We got a 32 millimeter on the axle nut here, 21 millimeters on the struts, 21 millimeter on the caliper mounting bracket, 14 millimeter on the caliper, 18 millimeter on the ball joint. We're gonna take this whole steering knuckle off. We'll start with getting these guys off. See, it's gonna spin right there. So you might need to put a wrench in there. Looks like it's 14, 15 millimeter wrench, something like that. I was just seeing if I could stop it with a screwdriver. Yep, that'll work for now. When you're putting them back together, you might have to put a wrench on that inner bolt. This one's not gonna spin on us in the bottom, that's cool. You can do your brake pads at the same time if you want. You're gonna compress this piston a little bit. Try to. It's not moving at all. There it goes. Don't hurt your pad when you're doing that. And you don't want to let your caliper hang by the brake hose. That's no good for it. Now we've got our 21 millimeter. Where'd that black 21 go? Right there. Reverse. We're gonna zip this bracket off. Don't let it fall to the ground. Bada boom. 6 o'clock. Axle nut. When you put your axle nut back on, there's going to be a torque spec. We'll have to dig that out for you. And these axles don't like to come free. So a lot of times you got to use an air chisel. And the rotor's not just going to fall off of there, so we're going to need a hammer. Alright, we'll get this rotor off. We're going to be reusing this. We're just doing a ball joint, so you want to hit on the flat spots. There you go. Broke free. Don't hit your lug studs. Don't hit the surface of the rotor. Alright, we got all that out. This is a pretty light caliper. Just set it right there for now. Turn the wheel back the other way. We gotta zip the nuts off the strut. That's gonna be 21 millimeter as well. Nope. We're gonna have to go with the deep well 21. There we go. Pretty rusty. And we're spinning over on this side, so a 21 wrench. Good flying. Let's get that CV axle pushed out from the hub. There we go. That's why that center hole's there. And these bolts have pointed tips so you can hammer them out without hurting them. The threads. See if we can get them to spin out. There we go. Now we've got wheel speed sensor here. You can try taking it off from the hub assembly. There's a 10mm bolt. A lot of times they'll break if you try that. Or you can go up through here and disconnect it. We'll see if this one will come out straight from the hub. See if it'll work out. You don't want to pry them on them or anything. I think what we're going to want to do is disconnect it from up in here. We'd have to lower the vehicle, open the hood to get to that. See if she swivels at all. Nah, it's too rusted in there. All right, and we got our tie rod to take off. What we got there? 18mm on the ball joint and the tie rod. So we'll take this ball joint off. And that ball joint's just spinning in there because it's so bad. So we gotta use Allen. There's a little hole in the bottom of the ball joint. Fits an Allen into. Let's see here, yep. 6mm Allen fits on it. And then there's our 18 right there. Let's go with the 18mm longer one. And we'll try to just spin the ball joint. And that's not working for us. It's just way too tight still. So that's the way to do it. If the ball joints just keep spinning, I'm gonna put some heat on that. We'll worry about that in a second. Same with the wheel speed sensor wire. We get an 18mm deep for the tie rod end. And then to break these free, you want to hit the flat spot right about here. and the vibrations pop the tie rod loose. Tie rod has very slight play in it. Inner tie rod feels good. About the slightest amount of play you can get in these. So that'd be recommended for replacement as well. All right, cut. Our ABS wheel speed sensor wire harness is straight down there. You see that little green guy? You got to pull back on that green clip. It's like a safety. You pull back on it, get a little screwdriver in there, and then you can squeeze the black tab in the middle together. And there you go. The wheel speed sensor, the other side that pulled out, just came out. It's a really tight area. So what I had to do is get some extra slack first. So we got this popped out of here. This actually slides up and down the wire. It might be really tough to get it to slide at first. Pop this clip out of there. Little 13mm bolt that went in there. Opened up that little clip there. Gives you more slack. So I used a pry bar to pop that wiring harness off where it was Christmas treed in. A little pry bar, because you can't get your hands in there. And then gave it more slack. Was able to grab it with my hands, or you can use some skinny needle nose and pull the slack this way to mess with the clip. So toughest part of the job so far, just connecting that one connector right there. All right, now to get that ball joint off. These have little nylon plastic lockers on them. And that's what really hangs the ball joints up. So we just need to give it some heat. I might have been able to break it free without heat, but I'm just gonna put some heat on it. Heat makes everything easy, guys. That's still not gonna work. So we're gonna need this guy. Oh, which way are we going here? Yep, we're good. I'm gonna try turning the wrench. We gotta click this that way. Oh, it's moving a little bit. Holy crap. Got my ratchet back. There we go. Let's try it the other way. Starting to cool down a little bit. That's not good. We're replacing the ball joint, so now I'm tightening it. We gotta turn it this way. You could always just cut this off. Sawzall, cutter blade. Ooh, it stops right there on the end for some reason. Like the threads are no good on the end, like they've been hit or something. Sometimes you just gotta chop them off. It looks like the threads have taken a hit in the past and it just stops. You can chop it off with the Sawzall or whatever you need. I think I'm just gonna blast it off with my torch. All right, we got that nut blasted off. I'm gonna give it some hammer blows right here, just like the tie rod, to get it to break free. This ball joint is so sloppy, this might not work. Oh no, it came free. The heat probably helped a lot there. Just like that, we got our steering knuckle out. Now it's time to change the ball joint. All right, we got our ball joint all set up. There was a C-clip right in here. It was all rusted in. I used my air chisel to kind of like break it in half to get it out. You can get, if you take your shield off, you can get to it easier through an access hole, but I just used the air chisel, ripped it out. And we got our ball joint set up, ball joint press. You need a lot of distance here so that the ball joint doesn't hit. I already cut off half of it, so I got extra room. So now it's time to tighten this down. There we go. You can see that ball joint is pressing out of there, but it's not all the way pressed out, so we could put a different adapter in there to get more pressure in it. I'm gonna take my air chisel and get it the rest of the way out. Bada boom. She's out. That's what she looks like. This is about one of the strangest setups I've ever had. All right, so we got our ball joint right here. We got a cone, you know, you got the shaft of the ball joint going down to about here, so we got plenty of room. And then we used another ball joint adapter that sit flat on here. And then our shop press. Because with the ball joint press, you can't get anything around this cap, an adapter that goes over it so that it can press through and fit the ball joint press in at the same time. You need a special press. That's why there's this slot in the back. But I've seen other people hammer them in. You should not hammer them in. So we used this arrangement. Kind of ridiculous, but worked great. Pressed in straight first try. So pretty crazy. But that ball joint's pressed in. Now we're gonna have to spin our Zerk fitting in. We'll grease that when we're all done. Make sure you have it pointed the right way so it's greasable. You have access. And we gotta put our C-clip in there. Here's Zoe. She's supervising today, right, Zoe? All right, so got my Zerk fitting and C-clip in there. Just set the steering knuckle right into the control arm. And with the steering knuckle forward, fit the CV axle in. Put a little grease on the splines. Helps it slide through better. Helps it not seize to the hub in the future if the hub assembly needs done. Now all we got to do is line that up with the holes of the steering knuckle. Put our bolts through, tighten them down real good. And then we'll start our axle nut, just start it, not final torque it. Put the tie rod end back on, put the brakes back together. All right, I got just about everything put back together. The torque spec on that axle nut is pretty low. It says 97 foot-pounds on my chart. So these should be 15 millimeter, those inside. They were spinning on me, so I had to put a wrench on that. Of course, you got the 14 millimeter back there. Make sure you get your strut bolts real tight. Your mounting bracket bolts real tight, those 21 millimeters in there. And we've already got the ball joint and the tie rod tightened down. No problems with those spinning. I was able to zip them right on. So I still got to grease the lower ball joint. And we got to prime the brake pedal because we pushed that piston back. Just hit your brake pedal a few times until they get tight again. And I got my wheel speed sensor wire, ABS wire, routed back where it goes. Before I take all the slack out by putting this 13 back in and everything, I'm gonna get it clipped together. And then I'll tighten that bolt and all that. And that should about do it. So checking your torque specs on your axle nut, you want to put the wheel back on. I just zipped it on so that it was kind of snug. Put your wheel back on, put it on the ground, and bust out your torque wrench, 97 foot-pounds. Have somebody hit the brakes if you have to. Sometimes they can roll instead of turning, but that ought to do it. We'll finish up the rest. Thanks for watching. Almost forgot to put the dust cover on. Took that off for pressing the ball joint. Just 3 10 millimeter bolts hold this on. Lines up right there. So, took my rotor and caliper back off, put this back on. There we go.